Welcome to this revision blast for AQA GCSE Geography. Today we are focusing on tropical rainforests, which is part of the Living World unit on paper 1. First, we're going to start off with a super easy activity. All you need to do is match the layer to its name. However, every year countless students get these layers modelled up, so let's see how you do. I'm going to leave this on the screen for a few moments. All you need to do is to match A, B, C and D to the right label. So we'll give you a few moments. If you need a little bit of extra time, then please pause the video. Okay, we're going to give you 5 more seconds. So if you need more time, then pause. Right, let's have a look and see if you were correct. So we have, right at the top, we have our emergent layer. Directly below that, we have the canopy layer where you have most of the wildlife in the rainforest. We've then got the understory, and then at the bottom, we have the forest floor. Hopefully you got those all correct. Let's move on to our next activity. This time we are going to pop these countries in order of rainforest coverage, with the highest amount of rainforest coverage in first place. Again, we'll give you a few moments. If you need longer, then pause the video. Okay, let's reveal the answer. Unsurprisingly, we have Brazil in number 1. We've then got the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Africa. We have Indonesia. We've got India, which might be surprising to many of you. We've got Malaysia, which lots of you will have done as your named rainforest case study. And then in 6th place, Nigeria. Right, we're going to move on to some true or false statements. Okay, so I'm going to show you 5 statements. You've got to decide whether they are correct or incorrect. So our first one is tropical rainforests experience a small range in temperature throughout the year. Is this true or false? So we'll leave it up for a moment before we reveal the answer. Okay, let's have a look. It is true. So generally they have an average rainfall of about 27-28 degrees, and that tends to be the same all year round. Okay, number 2. The tallest layer in the tropical rainforest is the main canopy. Now this should be nice and easy if you were paying attention to the first activity. So I'll leave it up for a moment. Let's reveal. No, it is false. So the emergent layer is the tallest canopy, and those trees tend to grow up to about 40 metres high. Number 3, commercial farming poses the greatest threat to the tropical rainforest. Do we think this is true or false? Let's reveal the answer. It is true. So commercial farming, this might be for cattle, or it could be for great big plantations like soy plantations or palm oil, particularly in places like Indonesia. Number 4, tropical rainforests are located between 15 degrees and 35 degrees north and south of the equator. Is this true or false? Let's reveal the answer. It's false. So those latitude lines that you have on the screen are actually for deserts. So tropical rainforests are generally located along or around the equator. And our 5th true or false statement is leaves in the shrub layer are a deeper green as they have more chlorophyll for photosynthesis. Is that true or false? Just give you a moment to read that again. Okay, let's reveal the answer. It is true. Okay, so they need to have a bit more chlorophyll because obviously they get a bit less light than trees up in the canopy or the emergent layer. Right, we're going to move on now. We're going to play a game of higher or lower. This time we're having a look at the changes in the annual rate of deforestation. So we're going to start off with Brazil. We're going to show you what Brazil's annual rate of deforestation is. in the last year has seen a 57% increase following a period of decrease. So actually in Brazil, generally deforestation had been down for quite a long period of time, and that is mainly because there's huge amounts of conservation taking place in Brazil. Lots of the rainforest is protected. However, in 2019, a new president came in and he declared that the rainforest should be opened up more for exploitation for commercial gain. So unfortunately, in the last couple of years, we have seen quite a big increase. Right, let's have a look at our next country. So our next country is Malaysia. Now, do we think Malaysia has seen a bigger change in the annual rate of deforestation than Brazil? So it's going to give you a moment to have a think about that, and then we will reveal the answer, whether it's higher or lower. Right, let's reveal the answer. They have had a 9% increase, so they are lower than Brazil. Right, let's have a look at our next country. It is Indonesia. Has Indonesia had a higher or lower change in the annual rate of deforestation than Malaysia? And also, do we think it will be an increase or a decrease? Just going to leave that for a moment before we reveal the answer. Let's have a look. They've had an 107% increase, so obviously much higher. Now, it currently is the biggest increase of any country around the world, which is very worrying. Right, our last country is Madagascar. So part of Africa, just off the southeast coast. Have they seen a higher or lower change in the rate of deforestation? And has it increased or has it gone down? They've had a 36% increase, which, although obviously is worrying, it's a lot lower than Indonesia. Right, I'm going to move on to a Give Me 4 activity. This time we would like 4 economic activities that lead to deforestation of tropical rainforests. Okay, you have got 30 seconds to come up with 4. Right, let's see how you did. Could you manage to come up with 4 activities that lead to the deforestation of tropical rainforests, or could you even name more? Let's have a look at what you could have had. Okay, we have logging, we've got mineral extraction, we've got energy development, and we've got farming, both commercial and subsistence. So let's have a think about those. So logging is a first step in converting forest into land for other uses, and that is either by clear felling, where all trees are chopped down in an area, which leads to the total destruction of those forest habitats. However, we do sometimes see selective logging, where only fully grown trees are cut down, and it means that the trees that have got the most important ecological value are left unharmed. We move on to mineral extraction. There are loads of valuable minerals found beneath the world's tropical rainforest. So, for example, in the Amazon, there's lots of gold. There's around 50,000 hectares of land being used currently for gold mining. And then you've got the Carajás mine in the Amazon as well, which is the world's largest iron ore mine. In terms of energy development, you've got lots of big rivers flowing through those rainforests, so that unlimited water supply means that there's a really huge potential for hydroelectric power, or HEP. But this often involves flooding large areas of the rainforest, and that causes lots of rotting to those submerged trees. You also get dams becoming blocked with soil that's been washed off those exposed slopes by the heavy rainfall, which can lead to lots of flooding as well. Then right at the bottom, we've got farming. We've got both commercial and subsistence. So in terms of commercial, you would have cattle rearing, which is about 80% of the rainforest destruction in the Amazon. Unfortunately, the quality of the pasture declines really quickly, so cattle farmers have to move on to new areas. When we're talking about crops, we think about those huge, vast plantations for things like soybeans, coffee, palm oil, and again, the soil quickly loses its nutrients, so farmers search for more land. And we've got subsistence farming as well, where we have farmers growing crops for their family usage, which is a smaller part of deforestation. We've got another one that's worth mentioning that is not on the screen, which is that the idea of building roads. Building roads makes the rainforest commercially viable and accessible, so it opens it up to further exploitation. So all of those activities that are currently on the screen can take place. So it means it's much easier to bring in equipment and transport goods found in the rainforest to markets. And a really good example of that is the 4,000-kilometre Trans-Amazonian Highway, which has opened up lots of remote areas of the Amazon rainforest. So we're going to have a think then about the pros and cons of deforestation. So it is, obviously, it does have an impact on habitats and things that we'll have a look at in a few moments, but also there are some massive economic benefits to countries that do have rainforest cover. So we're going to think first about some advantages for deforestation. So we're going to give you a moment to think about what might be beneficial to chopping down the rainforest for countries. Okay, so have a think about what might be what might be an economic advantage. We're going to reveal some answers in a moment. So if you need a little bit more time, then please pause the video. Let's reveal some answers here. So we've got the idea of cheap and plentiful hydroelectric energy, which will help develop communities. Remember, lots of these areas with rainforests tend to be either low-income countries or newly emerging economies. And using the land will create jobs both directly, so for example in construction and farming, but also indirectly through supplying and supporting the industries that have that work with those economic activities such as mining and energy. So this time we're looking for two disadvantages of deforestation. So I'll give you a few moments again. If you need to pause the video, then please do, to give yourself a little bit more time. Right, let's have a look at some of the potential damage that's done by deforestation. So this time we've got reducing biodiversity, which means that plants with important medicinal benefits may be lost. Mining may lead to pollution of water sources, leading to shortages for domestic use and farming. There are lots of other disadvantages that we're going to talk about in the next few activities. So well done if you got those correct. Right, we're going to think this time about the goods and services provided by the tropical rainforest. So why is it so valuable? So this time you have got 60 seconds to put these 8 phrases in the right category. Are they goods provided by the tropical rainforest, or are they services provided by the tropical rainforest? Off we go. Let's have a look at how you got on. So in terms of goods provided by the tropical rainforest, we have the ingredients for medicines, we've got energy, the water for hydroelectric power, for example, native food crops, food and water, and then we've just got water in general. Then in terms of services, we have air purification, particularly absorbing CO2, so really important for climate change, water and nutrient recycling, we've got animal habitats, and we have employment opportunities. Right, we're going to move on to a game of news headlines. We're going to have a look at the missing word. We're going to try and spot what word is not there. So our first headline, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that about what percent of the world's tropical rainforest has now been cleared? So what do you think it might be? I'm going to leave it for a moment. Think about a number that might be behind that black box. Let's reveal the answer. It is half of the world's tropical rainforest that's now been cleared. An area what times the size of the UK has been lost in the Amazon rainforest. So what do we think might be the word here? So a number. Let's give you a few moments before you reveal. Let's reveal the answer. It is an area 3 times the size of the UK has been lost in the Amazon rainforest. Our next one, the Brazilian government cracks down on what deforestation? What might that word be there? Now we know they're not cracking down on deforestation in general, so what type of deforestation might they be cracking down on? Let's reveal the answer. It is illegal deforestation. So they're actually using technology such as drones to get to those more remote regions where there is lots of illegal deforestation taking place, because in the past it's been easy to get away with it there because it is so remote, but that is not the case anymore. So we're going to move on to a 60-second challenge. This time you have got 5 key terms and you have got their definitions. So let's pop the timer on. You've got 60 seconds to work these out. You might want a pen or pencil at the ready, piece of paper to note down these letters. Off you go. So let's see if you manage to get these correctly matched up. So A2, biodiversity is a variety of life in the world or a particular habitat. B5, selective logging, which is cutting down some trees but leaving most to allow the forest to regenerate. C3 is stewardship, the role of supervising and taking care of something to preserve its characteristics. D1, sustainability, actions that meet the needs of the present without reducing the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And E4, interdependence, the ways in which organisms in an ecosystem rely on each other. Right, we're going to move on to a connection spinner activity. So rather than going through the reasons that we need to protect the rainforest, we're going to get you to think about these instead. So this connection spinner is a really good activity that helps you apply your knowledge, and hopefully we all know that the application of knowledge is a key assessment objective at GCSE. So you won't access the higher bands in level mark questions without it. So we're going to think about some reasons why we need to protect the rainforest, and you just need to explain how the rainforest helps each thing. Right, so let's start the spinner. So our first reason is linked to biodiversity. So have a think about why we should protect tropical rainforests linked to biodiversity. So perhaps you might want to pause the video for a moment, note something down, and then you can unpause. We'll just give you a moment to think. So why should we protect the tropical rainforests linked to biodiversity? Let's reveal the answer. The tropical rainforests contain over half of all global fauna and flora species, so we're talking about plants and animals here, and some of those we haven't even discovered yet, and they are the most diverse of all the different biomes. So let's have a think about what might be a reason for protecting the rainforest with some of the other factors that are on the screen. So let's think about climate change. So why might the forest be really important in terms of climate change? So I'm going to give you a moment before we talk about that answer. Again, you might want to pause the video to give yourself a little bit more time. Okay, so in terms of climate change, tropical rainforests absorb and store huge amounts of CO2, meaning there are less greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and deforestation itself is a major cause of climate change. Right, let's give you a moment to think about water. How does protecting the tropical rainforest help with water? So again, I'm going to give you a moment to think about that question, and then I will give you an answer. Right, what do we think? Well, water is incredibly important, we know that, and tropical rainforests are a really important source of fresh water. 20% of fresh water comes from the globe, 20% of all fresh water across the globe actually comes from the Amazon basin, so it's hugely important, and this water all helps keep the climate cooler. Right, let's think about one more. So we're going to pick out the last three. We're going to pick resources. So think about why protecting tropical rainforests is really important in terms of resources. Again, pause the video if you need a little bit more time. Are we ready? Tropical rainforests themselves provide lots and lots of products like we had a look at in the categorised activity a few moments ago, such as food, for example, fruit and nuts, rubber, hardwoods, as well as medicines such as things like anti-cancer drugs, and about 25% of all medicines come from the rainforests. So there are lots and lots of reasons why we should be protecting these tropical rainforests. Okay, we're going to move on and think about rainforest management strategies now. So you're going to see a number of rainforest management strategies. They have had their vowels changed to an alternative vowel, so the words will look quite odd. Let's try and work out each of these strategies. So here is our first one. Remember, it's not an anagram, it's had the vowels changed. So we're just going to leave it up for a moment to get you to have a think. Remember, these are all strategies to help protect the rainforest. Have we worked this one out? Let's reveal this one. It is international agreements. So these are between governments and they are aimed at protecting the biodiversity and the resources of the rainforest. A really good example of this is the 2006 International Tropical Timber Agreement, and this restricts the trade in hardwoods taken from the tropical rainforest. And that's really important because those hardwoods are really valuable, and the high prices paid for them have encouraged lots of illegal felling, and that tends to take place in those more remote areas of the rainforest. And it often goes unnoticed. So the agreement that was put in place in 2006 restricts the trade of hardwood timber, and it means that timber has to be felled in sustainably managed forests, and all timber has to be marked with a registration number to show where it came from. Right, this is our next one. I think this one looks a little bit easier. Are you ready for the reveal? Let's have a look at what it is. It is debt for nature swap. So hopefully you've come across this one. So we've already mentioned earlier in the video that most of the countries with tropical rainforest coverage are newly emerging economies or they're low income countries, and they often have huge debts, and that results from, that's resulting from overseas aid in the form of loans. So schemes known as debt for nature swaps are really important, and they are sometimes arranged between two countries. So a good example of this is in 2010, the USA signed an agreement to convert a Brazilian debt that was worth £13.5 million into a fund to protect large areas of tropical rainforests. Another example is Costa Rica agreeing to spend $27 million on conservation projects in return for a reduction in what they owe to Western governments. So these swaps are part of what's more widely known as debt reduction. And They're also quite important for high-income countries, so they agree to write the debts off for some poorer countries in return for a promise that these countries will invest in conservation projects. This means that they are able to meet their own targets for supporting conservation and tackling climate change by doing this. Number 3. What do we think this one is? So we've got two separate things that work together. Are we ready to reveal? It is conservation and education. So it's often done through non-governmental organisations or NGOs such as the WWF, the World Wildlife Fund for Nature. And these are charities that rely on volunteers and donations. And they work to promote the conservation message largely through education programmes in schools and colleges. They quite often train conservation workers, and they will also provide practical help to make programmes more sustainable. In some cases, they even buy up threatened areas and they create nature reserves. And they feel it's really important to make sure that the people who are involved in exploitation of the rainforest understand the dire consequences of their activities. And these conservation activities can be at the international level. They can also work at national and local levels. Right, we have mentioned this one earlier. So this is again another management technique. Hopefully this one is quite easy to work out. Let's reveal the answer. It is small-scale forestry, and there are a number of different small-scale forestry techniques that help manage the tropical rainforest sustainably. So we've already mentioned selective logging, which involves felling trees only when they're fully grown, as these are seen as less valuable ecologically, and it means that younger trees can mature and they can continue to protect the ground from erosion. We also have agroforestry as part of this, which combines crops and trees, and it allows crops to be grown in a carefully controlled, cleared area within the rainforest. And it grows rainforest trees on the plantations outside of the rainforest. And it means that we can actually see food crops and tree crops grown, such as coconuts there. And thirdly, you can also have replanting. And there are various projects in the Amazon rainforest at the moment which shows it's possible to recreate forest cover almost like the original. And this is done by collecting seeds from the remaining patches of primary forest and then using these seeds to grow into saplings in nurseries and then planting these saplings back into the deforested area to create new forests, which are the same as the old ones. Okay, our last one is this word here. So I'm going to give you a moment to have a think about it. What do we think this is? Hopefully you have recognised it is ecotourism, and ecotourism is used in lots of countries like Costa Rica, Belize and Malaysia, where they have promoted their forests for this type of tourism because they've got lovely scenery, really good wildlife, they're remote, they've got great culture, which are huge attractions to tourists. So ecotourism aims to educate visitors and increase their understanding and appreciation of nature and local cultures, and it benefits local communities and it protects the environment for the future. It is small scale and it's local, so it's controlled by local people, it employs local people, and it uses local produce, which means that the profits stay in the local community. And it also tries to minimise the consumption of non-renewable resources and obviously the ecological impact of the tourism in the first place. Lots of the income generated by ecotourism will be invested straight back into conservation projects as well, which will retain and protect the rainforest. And obviously that benefits the government, it benefits local people. So it is a much more sustainable option than cutting down forests for other economic activities. Right, we're going to move on to another categorised activity. This time you have got these strategies that we've already talked about. You're just going to separate them into local level, national level and international level strategies. So you've got 1 minute, the timer starts now. Right, let's see where they go. So in terms of local level, we've got ecotourism, selective logging, replanting and agroforestry. National level, those national parks and forest reserves that can be set up as part of conservation programmes. And we've got adding conservation to the school curriculum, which is done in quite a lot of lower income countries and newly emerging economies. And at international level, we've got the debt for nature swaps between countries. And then we've got things like the Forest Stewardship Council, which would be part of one of those international agreements that we were talking about a moment ago. Right, we're going to end the revision blast today with a little bit of calculation. So hopefully we know that 10% of our marks across all 3 papers come from skills questions. And many of these will require you to do certain calculations. So we've got 3 for you to try. And we're going to start off with an easy one, although it is only easy if you know what the term range means. Hopefully we are aware that the term range means the difference between the highest and the lowest. Off you go. You've got 30 seconds. So you actually got an extra 30 seconds there because I thought my timer was half a minute and it was actually a minute. So let's check your answer. It is 2.8 degrees. So we've got that by obviously subtracting the minimum from the maximum, 2.8 there. Right, let's do the next one. So the following figures show the area of tropical rainforest deforest in kilometres in the last 5 years. So you've got 3 figures on the screen there. You've got to calculate the mean average rate of deforestation in kilometres squared. Off you go. So hopefully we know how to calculate the mean. Let's reveal the answer. Okay, it is 9,584 kilometres square. And you can see the calculation on the screen to work that out. So you add up all of the figures. So the figure from 2020, 2019 and 2018, then divide them by 3 to get your total. Right, last one. So this time we're looking at the Amazon rainforest is 5.5 million square kilometres in area. It is predicted that deforestation rates could reduce this by 30% in 2030. So this is a little bit more of a tricky question. So how much more rainforest would remain in 2030? Let's have a look. Okay, first, apologies for ending the calculation countdown activity with a bit of a stinker. So hopefully we've recognised that this is percentage decrease, which is quite tricky. So let's have a look at the correct answer. You can see whether you got this right. Well done if you did. It is 3.85 million kilometres squared. So our calculation here is 100 minus 30. Okay, because we're going down by 30%. So we'll have 70% left. Okay, then if we times that 5.5 by 70, then divide by 100, we will then end up with 3.85 million kilometres squared. So well done if you got that right. So well done for getting to the end of this revision blast on tropical rainforests. Hopefully it has reminded you of all of those different things that this topic covers, and it has made you feel a little bit more confident going into paper one. Obviously wishing you heaps of luck. Please have a look at the rest of our playlist, because we have got all of the paper one topics covered, and the paper two topics will be joining the playlist shortly.